Snow White by Jacob and Wilhelm Grimm. A summary. In the depths of winter, when snowflakes fall like feathers from the sky, a queen sits at her window with an ebony frame, sewing. As she works, she pricks her finger with the needle, and 3 drops of blood fall onto the white snow below. Gazing at the contrast of red blood against white snow and the black window frame, she makes a heartfelt wish for a daughter, with skin as white as snow, lips as red as blood, and hair as black as ebony. Her wish comes true when she gives birth to a beautiful daughter, whom she names Snow White, but the queen dies shortly after childbirth. A year passes and the king takes a new wife. This second queen possesses extraordinary beauty, but also extreme vanity and a heart filled with pride. She owns a magical mirror that speaks truth when questioned. Every morning she stands before this enchanted glass and asks, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" The mirror consistently replies that she is the most beautiful woman in the land, and this answer satisfies her vanity completely. Snow White grows in beauty with each passing year. When she reaches the age of 7, her loveliness surpasses even that of her stepmother. On this fateful day, when the queen poses her daily question to the magic mirror, it delivers a shocking response. "Queen, you are full fair, 'tis true, but Snow White is fairer than you." The queen's face turns yellow and green with envy, and from that moment, whenever she looks upon Snow White, her heart turns cold with hatred. Envy and pride grow like weeds in her heart, giving her no rest day or night. Unable to bear the thought of anyone surpassing her beauty, the evil queen summons a huntsman and commands him to take Snow White deep into the forest and kill her. As proof of the deed, she demands that he bring back the child's lungs and liver. The huntsman leads Snow White far into the woods, but when he draws his hunting knife, he finds himself unable to pierce the heart of such an innocent child. Snow White pleads for her life, promising to run away and never return. Moved by compassion, the huntsman tells her to flee and never come back. To satisfy the queen's demand for proof, the huntsman kills a young wild boar and removes its lungs and liver. The wicked queen, believing these organs belong to Snow White, orders the cook to prepare them with salt, and she eats them, thinking she has consumed her rival's heart and lungs. Meanwhile, Snow White runs deeper and deeper into the forest, stumbling over stones and through thorns with wild beasts passing by but doing her no harm. As evening approaches, Snow White discovers a small cottage nestled among the trees. Everything about this house appears miniature, but extraordinarily neat and clean. Inside, she finds a table set with 7 small plates, each with its own cup, knife, fork, and spoon. 7 tiny beds stand in a row, covered with sheets white as snow. Overcome with hunger and exhaustion, Snow White eats a small portion from each plate and drinks a drop from each cup, not wanting to finish anyone's entire meal. Then, feeling drowsy, she tries each bed until she finds one that suits her perfectly, where she falls into a deep sleep. When darkness falls completely, the owners of the cottage return home. These are 7 dwarfs who work in the mountains, mining for gold and precious stones. They light their 7 little lamps and immediately notice that someone has been in their house. Each dwarf examines his belongings and discovers that someone has eaten from his plate, drunk from his cup, and touched his bed. When the 7th dwarf looks at his bed, he finds Snow White sleeping peacefully. The dwarfs gather around in amazement, holding their lamps high to examine this beautiful child. They marvel at her snow-white skin, blood-red lips, and ebony black hair. Agreeing that she must be the most beautiful child in the world, they decide not to wake her and let her sleep through the night. In the morning, Snow White awakens to find the 7 dwarfs surrounding her. Though frightened at first, she soon realizes they mean no harm and tells them her tragic story. The dwarfs take pity on Snow White and offer her sanctuary. They propose that if she will keep their house clean, cook their meals, make their beds, wash their clothes, sew and knit. She may stay with them and want for nothing. Snow White gladly agrees to this arrangement. Each morning the 7 dwarfs depart for the mountains to dig for gold and copper, returning each evening to find their supper ready. They warn Snow White repeatedly about her stepmother, cautioning her to let no one into the house while they are away. Meanwhile, the evil queen, believing Snow White to be dead, returns to her magic mirror with confidence. She asks her usual question, expecting to hear that she is once again the fairest in the land. To her horror and rage, the mirror responds, "Queen, you are full fair, 'tis true, but Snow White beyond the mountains blue, with the 7 dwarfs so small, is 1,000 times more fair than all." The queen realizes that the huntsman has deceived her, and that Snow White still lives. Consumed with jealousy, and determined to be the fairest once more, the queen disguises herself as an old peddler woman. She travels to the cottage of the 7 dwarfs and knocks on the door, calling out that she has beautiful wares for sale. Snow White looks out the window and sees what appears to be a harmless old woman with colorful bodice laces. Against the dwarfs' warnings, she unlocks the door to examine the merchandise. The disguised queen offers to lace Snow White's bodice with a beautiful silk cord. Snow White, trusting in the woman's kind appearance, allows her to thread the new laces. But the evil queen laces the bodice so tightly that Snow White cannot breathe and falls to the ground as if dead. Satisfied with her work, the queen hurries away. When the 7 dwarfs return home that evening, they find Snow White unconscious on the floor. Seeing the tightly laced bodice, they quickly cut the cord, allowing Snow White to breathe again and gradually recover. The dwarfs realize that the old peddler woman must have been the wicked queen in disguise. They warn Snow White more sternly than ever to open the door for no one while they are away. Back at the castle, the queen consults her mirror again, only to receive the same infuriating response that Snow White remains the fairest. Her rage grows even more intense, and she devises a second plan. This time, the queen disguises herself differently and creates a beautiful comb laced with deadly poison. She returns to the cottage and presents herself as a different old woman selling hair ornaments. Despite the dwarf's warnings echoing in her mind, Snow White is tempted by the beautiful comb and opens the door. The moment the poisoned comb touches Snow White's hair, the venom takes effect, and she falls unconscious to the ground. Fortunately, evening arrives quickly, and the 7 dwarfs return to find Snow White collapsed once more. Recognizing another attempt on her life, they search her carefully and discover the poisoned comb in her hair. As soon as they remove it, Snow White begins to recover and tells them what happened. They warn her once again, more urgently than before, that she must not open the door for anyone. At the castle, the queen's mirror delivers the same maddening response about Snow White's superior beauty. Nearly insane with jealousy, the queen retreats to her most secret chamber and creates her most diabolical plan yet. Using her knowledge of witchcraft, she crafts a beautiful apple that appears perfect on the outside. One half remains pure and harmless, while the other half contains a deadly poison so potent that anyone who eats it will fall into a death-like sleep. Disguising herself as a farmer's wife, the queen makes her third journey to the dwarf's cottage. Snow White puts her head out the window but refuses to open the door, explaining that the 7 dwarfs have forbidden her to let anyone inside. The queen, appearing hurt and innocent, says she only wants to give away her apples and offers to eat half herself to prove they are safe. She bites into the white, harmless side while offering Snow White the red, poisoned half. The apple looks so delicious, and the old woman seems so trustworthy after eating her portion that Snow White cannot resist. She reaches through the window and takes a bite of the beautiful red apple. The moment the poisoned piece touches her tongue, she falls down dead. The evil queen laughs with terrible satisfaction, crying out that this time nothing can save Snow White. When the 7 dwarfs return home, They find Snow White lying motionless on the ground with a piece of apple still in her mouth. They lift her up, search for anything poisonous, unlace her bodice, comb her hair, and wash her with wine and water. But nothing helps. Snow White appears to be dead. They lay her on a bier, and all 7 sit around it, weeping for 3 whole days. They prepare to bury her, but Snow White looks as fresh and beautiful as if she were still alive, with her skin still white as snow, her lips still red as blood, and her hair still black as ebony. Unable to hide such beauty in the dark ground, the dwarfs create a transparent glass coffin so her beauty can still be admired. They place it on a mountaintop, and one of them always remains nearby to guard it. Even the animals come to mourn Snow White, first an owl, then a raven, and finally a dove. Snow White lies in the glass coffin for many years, never changing, never decaying, looking as if she merely sleeps. One day, a prince rides through the forest and sees the beautiful maiden in her crystal resting place. He reads the golden inscription that tells her name and story. Overwhelmed by her beauty, he falls immediately in love and begs the dwarfs to sell him the coffin, offering them whatever they desire in return. The dwarfs refuse all payment, declaring that they would not part with Snow White for all the gold in the world. The prince's love moves them, however, and they eventually agree to give him the coffin as a gift. As the prince's servants lift the coffin to carry it away, one of them stumbles over a tree root. The jolt causes the piece of poisoned apple to dislodge from Snow White's throat, and she immediately awakens, alive and healthy once more. The prince declares his love, and Snow White agrees to marry him. They plan a magnificent wedding celebration and invite guests from far and wide. Among the invitations is one for Snow White's stepmother, who has been living in confidence that her rival is finally dead. As she prepares for the celebration, she asks her mirror the familiar question one final time. The mirror delivers its final devastating response. "Queen, you are full fair, 'tis true, but the young queen is fairer than you." Trembling with rage and terror, the queen recognizes that this new queen must be Snow White, returned from the dead. She considers not attending the wedding, but finds herself compelled by curiosity and jealousy to see this impossibly beautiful bride. When the evil queen arrives at the wedding celebration, she immediately recognizes Snow White as the bride. Her heart fills with such terror and anguish that she can barely stand. As punishment for her crimes, iron shoes have been heated red hot in the fire. The attendants force these burning shoes onto her feet and compel her to dance until she falls down dead. Snow White and the prince live happily and reign wisely over their kingdom for many years. The magic mirror, finally free from its obligation to speak painful truths about beauty and vanity, reflects only the joy and contentment of a realm ruled by kindness rather than jealousy. The 7 dwarfs remain Snow White's loyal friends, visiting the castle often and always welcome at the royal table. The cottage in the forest becomes a symbol of the sanctuary that love and friendship can provide against the cruelest intentions, and the story of Snow White's trials and triumph spreads throughout the land as a testament to the power of innocence, kindness, and true beauty that comes from within.